You're listening to the Play It Brave podcast. Join Darcy for a wild rummage around in her wit and wisdom. She's a photographer, an educator, and a marketing ninja. Each week, she's going to be teaching you all about creating a life full of mindset, money, and marketing miracles. Listen to real-world experiences and surefire strategies from expert guests, all to keep you focused on your path to success. Think less hand-holding or fist bumps. So stop playing safe. It's time to start playing it brave. Here's your host, Darcy Benincosa.
On today's episode of the Play It Brave podcast, we have my friend, an Italian connection that we made a few years ago, and we had the most epic time in Italy, Rhiannon Bosse, which I love your last name. I want it. Please give it to me.
Thank you.
We worked on a wedding together in Italy, a wedding that has been published on the cover, not the cover. I wish the cover.
I know. I was like, I missed that part.
No. In my mind, every publication I get is the cover. I love myself that way. We got published in Martha Stewart together. Mm-hmm. We created epic magic, and you blew my mind because not only did you plan it and style it and do the florals, you also attended as a guest. You also got family photos that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We fit in everything on that wedding day. It was amazing.
It was a pretty crazy day. I was just watching some home videos because we have all this time at home right now, right? But watching videos on my husband's phone, and there's a video of him and our oldest son, who was 1.5 at the time, in the pool. Mm-hmm. And I was like, where am I? Like, I'm not in these videos. And then it dawned on me, oh yeah, I was setting up for the wedding that day. And the next video he swiped to is actually a video of you and me from, he's on the 3rd floor of the villa filming you and I styling and photographing the finished tablescape.
Oh, I would love that video.
Yeah, I was going to try and upload it to Instagram today, and I'll try when we're done recording here. But it was just a really cool full circle moment to see that video last night and then tell him I'm actually going to be talking with Darcy tomorrow. But what a cool memory to reflect back on that day, because it was really special.
Well, I think this is one of the key things that we learn in business is that one little wedding, one little connection can totally change your networking world. After us spending that time together, I didn't know you before. Like, we had talked and connected before the wedding. So we made sure the styling was going to be right on. And we talked about flat lays. And, we were really committed to making sure this wedding was the most beautiful thing that Kelly could ever have. Mm-hmm. And it's these small little interactions that you have with people, how you treat them, how you connect with them, how you create art together. And you were just so fun to create art with. I know you're retired from wedding planning right now, but what I said that day still stands, that you are hired. That when I get married, you're coming, and you're going to just be my one-stop wonder for everything.
I will come out of retirement for that. So
yay! Ironically, this podcast is about saying no and changing our direction in business. And maybe, so often in life, especially in the Western world, we are told to push more, be more, exceed more, book that $30,000 wedding, book that $100,000 weddings, photograph celebrities, like all of these things. And I have felt very strongly in my wedding photography work, especially, that I'm really comfortable where I'm at. And I haven't wanted to grow it bigger because it's in such a beautiful place right now. Mm-hmm. And so I've said no to a lot of things that would make me be back hustling again like I was in the early days that I don't really want to. And you've done a lot of transition lately in your business by saying no to some things. And I want to kind of have a conversation with you about what that looked like, how you allowed and gave yourself permission to do that. So do you want to give us a little background of all the jobs you've had, and now the ones you're saying no to, and now what you're saying yes to, and how you navigate it all with parenthood and everything?
Yeah, what a loaded question.
It's a big question.
It is a big question. So I can back up a little bit and give, I guess, context, my background, what I've done and where I am now. So I have a journalism background. I went to school to be a reporter. The dream job was on-air anchor, reporting the news. Like, I grew up with Sally Jesse Raphael in the background. Like, that's what my mom watched. Yeah. And like, I wanted to do that. That was like the dream. And that was the dream from a very young age all the way through to college. So I was also a NCAA gymnast. So for 19 years, I basically had a full-time job in the gym training. And I think a lot of my learning to say no came from being a gymnast and always having to say yes and be on, and also being in a sport that has a main goal of perfection. I think has a lot to do with my now very imperfect life and my contentment with that. So that can be a whole other discussion point that we touch on if you want, but spent a lot of my life as a gymnast, in the gym training, a lot of sacrifices, giving things up to pursue athletic goals that were also tied together with academic goals. I had a full ride scholarship to Michigan State. Graduated in 2008, had 11 unpaid internships on my resume, and could not find a job. We were in an economic time that is very similar to the one that I think we're kind of approaching on right now, and I just couldn't find a job. So I went back to school for a secondary degree in new media journalism. So if you remember in 2008, like the iPhone was new, technology was just kind of on the cusp of changing. Instagram wasn't out yet. Pinterest wasn't even a thing. The world was very different back then. So I went back to school to learn all these technology things that would hopefully get me a job, because I'd be better, skilled to take these jobs that weren't even available. But at the time, I'd started a blog. My blog at the time was about baking. I figured if I could find something that I liked and that I was passionate about, where those two things sort of collided together would be like the ultimate, job and the ultimate moneymaker. Because at the end of the day, we want to do what we're good at and what we like, but we also want to make money doing it. So I started this blog and was gaining a lot of weight from baking all these things and trying to figure
It's
out.
happening to me right now in quarantine. I am just baking muffins every day. Those of you who cannot see her, she's eating ice cream out of the pipe. I love you.
I totally, and it's dairy free because I have a dairy allergy, so it's somewhat healthy. But yes, it feels very similar to those days, just being stuck inside, job searching, and eating all these things and trying to figure out like what's next for me. And at the same time, I was engaged to who's my husband now, and a lot of the blog content I was putting out was slowly starting to become very wedding centric. And our wedding eventually came and went, and I had put so much time and effort into planning this wedding, and DIY projects were all the rage back then. Perhaps they still are now. And I would share a lot of the projects I was doing on this blog, and almost created like a little community of blog readers and people that I would go read their blogs and support them. Some of these women I still talk to, 11 years later now. And after we got married, which our wedding day was a hot mess, but after we got married, I thought, okay, that didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. I'm married to the person that I love, but the day itself didn't feel like all the work I had done paid off the way I wanted it to. And I thought maybe I could take the lessons I learned, which you cannot be a bride and a planner on the same day at the same time, or at least do it well. How can I take those lessons and those experiences that we went through and help make sure other people don't go through them? And that was sort of where the business was born. And I booked my first client shortly after we got home from our honeymoon, and things, I don't want to say snowballed from there, and everything's been, unicorns and daisies since then. But that was kind of where the business, started. And it was this right out of the gate, this like fiery desire to do whatever it took to make it work, because there was no other opportunities being presented to me. And my dad's a business owner, and I felt like I was at this crossroads where like this has to work, or the other option is, well, I'm Canadian too. So the other option is if it doesn't work, then like you go back to Canada and you live in your parents' basement. And that wasn't going to happen. So I did everything I could, and everything I thought that was right, and everything that felt savvy at the time. I just did whatever I could. I got really creative with my strategies for reaching out to people and doing shoots. Like this is when styled shoots were like not a thing.
Yeah. Like when they were just becoming a thing, so you could get them published really easy and get a lot of traction from them.
Exactly. And I'll never forget so I got married in 2010, and February of 2011, there was, I think it was the week of Valentine's Day. So whatever that Monday was and that Friday, on Monday, my first styled shoot was featured on Style Me Pretty. You could probably go look it up. And then on Friday, our wedding was featured.
Wow.
So that week of having two like front page and back page, like bookend features on Style Me Pretty was so valuable and a big deal at the time. And even having a blog for 11 years now has been tremendously valuable in not just supporting my business, but also being kind of a diary and a foundation for all the changes that I've made, because there's been a lot of them.
And have you consistently blogged still throughout everything? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Leadership, I think. A lot of people connect with your story, how you're putting it out there. You have such a beautiful eye. Yeah, you're able to combine a lot of things that I think some people might not understand how they go together, and you really combine them well.
Yeah. And I think for a long time it felt, I almost felt like a fraud. Like I'm doing all these things and I'm really passionate about all of them because it's my life. And if I'm not passionate about them, don't do them. But I have all these things and to me, they make sense because it's my life and I'm like living it. But, you know, I have an online soap shop, right? And then I have 2 little boys. So there's a lot of Legos and race cars and like farts in my house all the time. And then there's the flower business, and I love flowers, and I'm a very feminine person. And then there's like marriage, and, you know, I come from a very broken home where marriage was a mess, and my husband comes from divorced parents. So like marriage is really special to me, and like the idea of home is really special, and I have all these things and they don't feel like they connect. But when I really sat down to uncover, well, what are my like core values as a person and my core like gifts, and how do those things combine? Beauty and intentionality were 2 sort of themes, if you will, that emerged. And anytime I do something, I write something, I share something, I make something, I talk to someone, I have conversations, I put a social media post out, if there's some sort of beauty and intentionality that I can put behind that message and share with others, then it doesn't matter what the context is or if it's a bar of soap or fresh flowers or a picture of my boys. If those 2 things are in there, beauty and intentionality, then I'm doing my job.
I love that. Yeah.
So
you went through a recent transition where you decided to actually stop your wedding planning business and go and focus more on your florals, which are stunning. And how did you decide to say no and take a step back there?
It was really hard. There's still days where I think, did I make the wrong choice? And I know I didn't. And in light of what's happening like globally right now with coronavirus, part of me, I'd be lying if I said part of me wasn't a little relieved. I'm not rushing to reschedule all
Totally.
like, my heart goes out to all these clients. We actually had a wedding last weekend that was in New Orleans that got switched to October, and that alone was just a lot to deal with as the florist. So I hate to say I had babies and like life got too hard to have a business, but that was a big part of it. We don't really have parent units to help us with our kids. We don't really have like set babysitters. We just the way we kind of run our personal lives, it was getting increasingly harder to make my job and my clients come first without feeling guilty for my kids coming second. And I wouldn't ever want my kids to come second. I also have a very estranged relationship with my mom. I haven't seen her in 5 years. I'm not sure where she is. And my like mission in life is to be a very present and loving mom for my kids now and for the rest of my life. And that just requires a different type of intentionality than I think I would maybe have if that story was different.
Yeah. I also kind of think like people like you and I who have been perfectionists for a very long time, it's very healthy for us to give ourselves a few years where we don't have to push as hard. And I think that's really hard for people to understand. And most people who listen to my podcast are like, let me hear the ambition, let me hear the hustle, give me all the tools, give me all the tricks, you know, of how to grow. And I just have pushed myself from a very young age. I don't think there's ever been let alone a day or a week where I haven't pushed myself harder than most people I know. It's just the way I am wired. And really learning how to start saying no to a lot of things and giving myself just time to take a half hour to make breakfast if I want, which is what I've been doing in the quarantine. And it's been the life that I have told myself for years I would give myself, and I haven't done it. And I think you're being so intentional with your decision to maybe alter the way. And I think, there is something beautiful in how you've transitioned into it. Was there, I guess did it kind of weigh on you, or did you just know inside, like, I have to do this?
I think a bit of both. I don't know if it's a mother thing or a woman thing or a go-getter thing, because I'm like you, like wired to just go. Like, how many steps have I gotten? How many things can I get done today? When I go to bed at the end of the day, like how does my day rate on the productivity scale?
Totally.
And that was just a really unhealthy way to live for a long time. I think that put me in hot water in a lot of circumstances. My mental health was in the, crapper. And, but like I have this like intuition. And again, I don't know if that's like a woman thing, but this, like, I'm really good at making great decisions based on how I feel. And if my gut's telling me it's right or wrong. And there was so many days where I would wake up for a wedding and I would feel physically ill being away from my boys. Or I would drop them off at daycare and feel like, are they like the cost and the benefits, right? Like in dropping them off and then coming back home and doing what I need to do that requires them to be in the care of somebody else, is this the best case scenario for our family right now in this season? And some days it felt like the answer was no. Is it very hard to, because I'm doing this right now in this quarantine, is it very hard to be at home and to try and run two businesses, and they're very small businesses, but to try and work out and cook healthy meals and make sure my kids feel loved, both of them, because they're very different, to make sure the house is clean, keep up with laundry, and like, is it harder to do those things? Absolutely. It's like my days feel like they're upside down half the time, but at the end of the day, like, what's best in this season? And I have to get really honest with myself. And back to the planning question you had, I think it was a decision I felt like I needed to make, but I didn't feel ready to make it for about 2 wedding seasons. And at the end of last wedding season, I just felt very convicted in my decision to take this leap. And honestly, the one thing, it wasn't money holding me back. It wasn't a spouse telling me not to do it. If anything, my husband was telling me the opposite. It wasn't a death of a loved one or a miscarriage or something that just like happened that propelled me into it. It was very gradual, but it was my ego that was holding me back for a long time. It was, you've done this your whole life, your whole like adult professional life. You're good at it. Your name is attached to a lot of things that are very impressive. You've been to a lot of cool places like Italy. You're well known. This is your identity, and this is your purpose. My purpose got so wrapped up in my position, and I hated that. I hated how uncomfortable that was, and I hated that at the end of my day and the end of my life, when all these things go away, what am I going to be left with if this is what I'm like white knuckling? So if anything, I think letting go was a good lesson in learning to just like strip it all away and like kind of rebuild my sense of worth. And I hate to give like a cliche analogy, but as soon as I took that leap and like announced it and made the decision, like it was like just taking off. It was so freeing and lovely and wonderful. And even a girlfriend was texting me the other day who I haven't spoken to in a while because she's busy with her 3 kids. And she's like, you just seem so lighter. And I was like, I am lighter. Like I feel, and I don't want to ever put what I have done in the past with clients or the weddings I've done in a negative light, because they've all been so great and wonderful. But in this season now, as I've transitioned into this next part of my life, like this is what's best. And it feels really good. So.
Well, I love that. I've been going through something similar, and I really was struggling with how to transition out of it. Like when I canceled the Paris workshop, my intuition told me to do it. I did it before the virus got really crazy. I got my refunds back, and I love the Paris workshop. I didn't even feel heavy from the Paris workshop, but what happened with canceling it is it freed up. I mean, to plan that workshop and to plan all the shoots takes like 100 hours, 150 hours. I mean, it takes time, like that's all my team would have focused on from March, April until we went in May. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And to have all this time freed up now, it's that same thing. Like I keep thinking, do I need to go back to workshops? Like, should I do more? Should I do another Paris
Mm-hmm.
one? Like, who is Darcy if she's not going to Paris? Who is Darcy if she's not in Italy shooting a wedding? Who's Darcy if she's not on some cool first class plane
Mm-hmm.
doing this and this and this? Because that's, I never knew how my business could even look.
Right.
If I just stayed at home and what that would even look like. I thought I would be miserable. And now I'm just like getting a little muffin tummy. I love it. My muffin top is coming from muffins. I'm just baking muffins with my nieces all day long. It's so nice. And I don't know if I'll be like this forever. Like you said, I think there's a season. My season might look different from yours because I don't have kids. And,
sure.
But I think it's so important to listen to our intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten really good at saying no to a lot of things lately? Like what do you say no to and what are you saying yes to?
I almost feel like I'm too good at saying no, where I'm like, wait, can I have another chance? I might want to say yes to that. So I had to almost think of it as there's like two versions of me. So there's like the present Rhi, so like the Rhi that's talking to you. And then there's the Rhi tomorrow, the Rhi the next day, the Rhi in a month, the Rhi in a year. And I have to think of how like future versions of Rhi are going to be very different than the present one. So when I make decisions or say yes or no to something, how is that going to impact like future versions of Rhi? And obviously I can't predict tomorrow, let alone a month or a year from now, but you can kind of point your arrow in a direction and hope it goes that way. So I have gotten really good at trying to think ahead and be cognizant of what I feel like I'm going to want and need in future seasons and how decisions I make now are going to impact that. Obviously, I'm not a like magician or a wizard and can like predict all these things perfectly, but like one of my January goals, I'm really into goal setting, was to just like take back my schedule and claim it in a whole new way and completely recalibrate how I live my day to day. And that seems very vague, but things like going to bed by 10 and then reading until 11, like that has to be laser beam focused, my goal every day, so I can learn to sleep again. Getting up before my kids get up so that I'm not frazzled in the morning and letting my day start on the wrong foot. Like I want to get enough sleep, and that's why I'm going to bed at 11, but get enough sleep so I can wake up and start my day and feel focused and ready. And if I'm lucky, even get up extra early, maybe have coffee before anyone bothers me, and maybe even get a blog post in. So just, being sensitive to the fact that I have all these things I want to do in my schedule, that means I need to look at the first 6 months of my year, my first 2 quarters, and be completely honest about more things that are coming my way and if I need to say yes or no to them. So in January, if I get a request to go to a speaking engagement in June, and in January, June feels so far away, but then I'm saying yes to it, and I all of a sudden get to June and I'm burnt out from all the things I've done, well, that's going to put me in a predicament. So you almost have to be really honest with yourself and underestimate your capacity.
So much.
And that's really hard to do because you want to do these things, and like you said, you want to associate your identity with big things, and you want to give back, and you want to make money, and you want to network, and you want to show up, and you don't want to miss out, and blah, 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 all these things happen. But at the end of the day, like to just turn off all that noise and just do the simple right thing in the present and get honest with yourself almost leaves space for the unexpected to happen, and it leaves you room to get curious. And I'll never forget that the month I made the decision to close wedding planning, and I hadn't really announced it, but I was telling a couple of people here and there, and Betsy, who works with me, she knew about it, my husband knew about it, but like the week I told myself and it like gave myself the final call, like we're doing this, I got an email from a planner. She's like, I don't know if you would ever consider this, but we have a wedding in New Orleans, and obviously she's planning it, but we really want an awesome florist, and it would be a bucket list item for you to do the flowers for this wedding. Would you ever consider working with another planner? And I was like, well, little do you know, I am not a planner anymore, and just decided this week, so I'm officially telling you now, yes, we'll take the opportunity. And that's the wedding we just unfortunately missed last week. But I just think the universe or God, whoever you believe in or whatever you believe in, like gives you that space to make those things happen when you give yourself that space to lean into it. So to answer your question with saying no, I think there's a lot of things that like align you into that place to say it. But I also think sometimes we overcomplicate saying no.
We do.
Like we have to justify it and like make sure it's perfect and get everything aligned and make sure this is covered. And I don't think we can live our lives like gypsies and just make decisions, without thinking about them. But I think sometimes we make it way more complicated than it needs to be. And then we second guess our no's. Like, well, should I have maybe said yes to that? And did I hurt that person's feeling by saying no? And what are they going to think if I said no to that? Do they think I'm not professional enough, or I'm not strong enough or smart enough? Like, just say no and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, and it's so much. Most of the time, the people are like, okay, you know what I mean? And we've created these huge stories in our lives. I sometimes feel like people are putting pressure on me, but I'm realizing I'm the only one putting pressure on me to show up for everything, to be there for everything. We just said no to my very first, it's the first conference that I've turned down being at, because I couldn't do anymore. I was just like, this is so, I want to be really present, and I want to be the best person I can be when I'm out at these networking events. As an introvert, it takes a lot out of me to be on for 3 days. And this past month in March, I went from hybrid to click away to, doing these things. And I just thought, I can't say yes to another one right now.
Yeah.
So, but they were fine with it. I thought they would like never ask me again, because, I just said, please ask me again. This isn't anything personal. And they were like, cool, we'll just go on to the next person. I was like, oh, wait, you mean the world keeps turning if I say no? What?
But here's the thing too,
like, and lead a conference without me there, like such an ego thing, right?
Right. But here's the thing too, even if they had been upset or disappointed, which I'm sure they were because they asked you to begin with, so they wanted you there. But even if they were upset with you or mad or like talked about you, which I'm sure they didn't do, but like, that's not your business, first of all.
Totally.
And second of all, like, who cares?
Yeah. I'm really good with people not liking me these days. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm getting better at it. I will be honest and tell you that was a huge paralyzing, not fear, but that was a big driver of like my emotions in business. And I think letting go of the wedding planning, by default, like a lot of that went out with the wedding planning.
Yeah.
And I feel like if there's one thing I can give, I don't know if like the demographic of your listeners age-wise, but if there's one thing I can give to like younger listeners, or maybe some like more mature ones that maybe struggle emotionally with that, to just learn that your value isn't wrapped up in what people think about you. Like that's the number one takeaway I can give, because that sucked so many joy out of things that should have been more pleasant than they were. Because what's that quote? You can be the sweetest peach in the basket and there's still going to be people that don't like peaches.
Yeah.
You're going to wrap your head around trying to figure out why people don't like you, and it has nothing to do with you.
I love that phrase. That's such a Southern sweet phrase.
So sweet. Like and I had a huge picture of a beautiful juicy peach that I cut out of a magazine ad on my inspiration board 2 years ago as a reminder that, you cannot make everybody happy.
Yeah.
You could be the sweetest, most accommodating, funny, charming, charismatic, lovely, beautiful, life-giving, creative person, and there's still going to be someone that has a problem with you. And like, ouch. I'm an Enneagram too. So I'm the helper, and I want everyone to be comfortable, and I want everyone to get along, and I want everyone to be accommodated. And when somebody doesn't get that, when I'm trying my best to do those very things, that's a huge letdown for me and disappointment. But you have to have those boundaries and that almost that like emotional maturity and agility to just know that a lot of times it has nothing to do with you. It really doesn't.
I think it's actually part of evolution to allow people not to like you, because that has been the thing that has kept women down for years and years and years and generations after generations, is pleasing, allowing, over-pleasing to everyone, just all of that thing that you're talking about, never allowing anybody to not like you, bending backwards, saying yes to everything, like all of that makes it impossible for us to evolve, to know ourselves truly, to stand up for ourselves. Sometimes there are going to be situations where you need to stand up for yourself and your intuition and your gut, and the person you're standing up against is not going to be happy with you. I've definitely had that happen. And it's just, you get to live in what it feels like, the discomfort of, I did not please this person.
Right. And that's okay.
It's totally okay. In fact, I encourage it. It's part of your growth.
Right.
It's
It's part of life too. And
part of life. You can't please everyone.
Well, and I have that experience with my 4-year-old who will say things like, what did he say the other day? Parker doesn't want to be my best friend. And like, part of me, like, my heart breaks because I'm like, I want everyone to be my kid's best friend. Like, he's so lovely and I just love him. He's my son. But then I also know, like, he's really territorial of his toys and he's kind of a jerk sometimes. Like, he's mean to his little brother and he can, like, talk back and, like, stick his tongue out. And maybe he pissed Parker off and Parker said something in his 4-year-old frustration. And that's okay. Like, Parker doesn't have to be your best friend, buddy. And that's okay. You're going to have other people that want to be your friend. But I find myself laughing at these moments where I'm trying to be a good parent because the lessons I'm teaching my kids are often lessons that are really important for me too.
Everything you learned in kindergarten still applies.
Yes, I live it daily.
So talk to me a little bit about your blog. So you're still blogging. Are you getting traction? Are you just blogging from the heart? Are you blogging tactics? Are you blogging your morning muse over your cup of coffee about a lesson? How are you creating such a beautiful, strong audience through your blog?
Yeah, great question. I actually had planned to do an Instagram post about my blog, and that it's an important part of what I do, and it's probably one of the parts I feel the most passionate about. And I don't think a lot of people realize it's there. So I wanted to sort of highlight that today and let my audience know, hey guys, just so you know, I have this resource and this thing over here that you might really like. I guess the blog is almost, it feels like a childhood puppy that's just like grown with me and has evolved with me and just come along with the engagement and the marriage and the kids, and he's just like been at the door, old faithful. And the blog has always been the foundation of the blog's been always very consistent. It's a very honest place where I share a lot of what's on my heart, but it's also very put together, and the content isn't just thrown together to like get stuff in front of people. It's very heartfelt. There's a lot of things that I write and things that I provide that a lot of other people are charging for. There's a lot of really just meaty content in there for business owners, specifically multifaceted wedding planners, because that was what I did for so long. But a lot of recipes, a lot of lifestyle things, a lot of stories and anecdotes that I've written that are experiences I've been through, but learning lessons that have come from those experiences and how they can hopefully intentionally inspire my readers. So it's really a grab bag, and I hesitate to call it a lifestyle blog because I think when people think lifestyle, they think like a fashion Instagram influencer with, you know, 1 million followers who's buying cheap fashion and standing in the pose on Instagram with the leg gap, and like that's not me. Like, obviously look at me. And I write about life and I write about style, but the two as like lifestyle just doesn't feel like it fits with my whole brand message. So in terms of audience, I've had a lot of people who have been following me since I had my baking blog still reading, and it's not a huge audience, but it's a very loyal audience. And I really try to encourage conversation, and it's unfortunate that blogging isn't as popular as Instagram, and I think Instagram is almost like fast fashion in and of itself, whereas blogging is like J. Crew versus Forever 21, let's say. So like a J. Crew jacket might be $350, but it's going to be well made. It's going to last you a few seasons. It's going to fit you like a glove. It's going to make you feel really good. Whereas, you know, the Forever 21 is cheap and it's $20 and you're in and out real quick, but no one helped you in the store. It's falling apart. It was made probably in a factory in a third world country. Like, that's kind of the analogy I have when I think of the two. Like, we're scrolling through Instagram and our version of engaging is just like clicking things with our thumb. It takes a lot of time and energy and dedication to go to someone's blog, read their content that they've created, and then engage in comments. So to have people still doing that in this age where we're just scrolling with our thumbs, I think really speaks volumes about the content I'm putting out there. And I really like how versatile the blog can be. So in 10 years, wherever life takes me, maybe I have a brick and mortar, maybe I have 2 more kids, maybe I'm living in Seaside, Florida. I don't know, but I know the blog will be there.
Yeah.
We were supposed to go there in 2 weeks and we're not anymore. And I'm a little bummed about it because I love it too. But
yeah, I lived right by Seaside for a long time.
You did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where did you live?
Beautiful. I lived in Destin.
Ah, amazing. Yeah, it's I'm sure it's a million other people's spot, but we went for a conference actually. I went, and then my stipulation was I will come and speak at this conference if my family can come with me. And we fell in love, and we would love to retire there. I'll have to start maybe making more soap to afford that. But it's a very beautiful place. So
it is a beautiful place. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
There's so much more we could talk about. I love that you're doing your blog. I love that your brand is so consistent. We're going to link to your site so everybody can go browse your blog, look at how beautifully crafted your brand is, your images, your positioning. I mean, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. You can have more than one passion if you're able to cohesively bring it together under a story. And you've really brought it together under the story of motherhood, marriage, work, all of those beautiful things. And you're handling them so gracefully and so real. You know, you've been very real about your kids, about postpartum depression, about, you know, transitioning away from wedding planning, embracing the floral side. I mean, all of it is just, I guess for me, it just feels like such a beautiful life story lived very intentionally, where you keep tapping into your intuition. I mean, that's what we're really coming away with is you keep listening to your intuition, even if it's different than what the world or your neighbor or the entrepreneur on the podcast or whatever would tell you. You keep listening to your intuition about what to say yes to, what to say no to, what to transition away from, what to embrace. And it's not going to be the same story for everyone, but listening to that intuition is so key. Let's end the podcast with you sort of telling us a bit about how you developed your intuition, or if you've always just had it and listened to it, if there was something that helped move you forward to listening to it a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful you asked that, because I have 2 tangible takeaways, I guess, that would be helpful to people.
Perfect.
So first, I think it's really easy to get sucked into what the creative or professional sphere is telling us is the right and wrong way to do things. And I think there's a lot of podcasts, webinars, workshops. I used to have one myself. Ebooks, retreats, masterminds. I can go on with the amount of resources out there for small businesses and entrepreneurs. And I feel like a lot of these resources are selling you their right way, or what they are claiming to be the right way to do X, whether it's bookkeeping, marketing, better Instagram pictures, whatever the thing is, they're promoting the right way, which means there's a wrong way. And if that's the way you're doing things, well, then you're wrong. So buy this thing and we're going to teach you the right way. And I feel like that's so backwards, and that is setting so many people up for disappointment when there's a best way. And the best way for you might be different than my best way, and from her best way, and from the next person's best way. But that's what makes a really beautiful, colorful entrepreneurial realm, if you will, is that we're all doing things in our best way for the betterment of our customers or our clients. And I think when we can get honest about what our better way is and not be so paralyzed by, are we doing it the right or the wrong way, it's a lot easier to listen to your intuition, because you're only listening to your own and not to what everyone else is telling them. Secondly, I feel like it's really easy, and maybe this is just because I do have a strong intuition and I've always been very clear on who I am. For me, it's always been really easy to grow a business and to find opportunities and to make the most of them. And I don't say that from a place of, I've never made a mistake, because I've made endless, and we can talk about those if you want. But it's never been hard for me to grow a business and find clients. So I've never gravitated towards things that are helping people with those very pain points, if you will. If anything, the hardest part has been to keep my business small, for the interest of the personal life that I've built. That's been really tricky. And to keep myself on track and make sure I'm reminding myself daily that this is where I need to be. I have to keep my blinders on, but I also have had to be very savvy about defining what success looks like for me and almost keeping this manifesto at the forefront of my mind every day to remind myself, hey, if you're going to be working today with 2 kids at your feet and that feels unprofessional, or that feels like you're going to be behind because Susie over here has no kids and she's like killing it with a 7-figure business, I have to like come back to that manifesto and that definition of success and remind myself that's okay because my definition of success is X and it has nothing to do with this over here.
Yeah.
So if I can encourage anybody to create like literally a bullet list of things that if you do these things on this list, you will be successful. That is going to be so key to keeping your expectations in check, making your goals really clear, and also just allowing yourself to not be let down when you don't do the next big thing that someone else is claiming is the right way.
Yeah, it's so true.
And your definition of success might change, but I've had so many moments where I feel like what I'm doing isn't enough professionally because of like the price tag and what I'm making. And when I come back to, again, my definition of success, there's like money references on there, but nowhere on there is there anything about a 6 or a 7-figure business, because the lifestyle we have and the fact that I'm in a partnership with a husband and the fact that we, like privately are figuring out what we need, like those things don't matter. Like 6 or 7 figures doesn't matter. Could I do those things? Absolutely. But like right now, there's so many other things that are more important. And this is just where we need to be for me to be successful right now. Will that change in 5 years? Maybe. Will it change in 10? Maybe. I don't know. But like for now, this definition is X. So I just need to work towards X being true every day. And if it is, then I'm successful. And that's great. And nothing else matters. I don't know if that's helpful, but
it's so helpful. I mean, lately my definition of success is be in bed at least 8 to 9 hours. Like I like to at least lay in bed for 9 hours. I've rechanged, I've made it so I'm not having such crazy deadlines anymore. I stop work by 7 at least. I'm trying now to change it. Like, Darcy, it'd be really successful if from 5 to 9 you didn't work. What would you do? Like, I don't even know what I would do.
Read a book, try a yoga class, go for a walk, meditate,
all those things.
A new recipe, maybe have a face-to-face conversation with a neighbor, like sit on your porch and literally listen to the birds. Like, I can't tell you how many things, and this sounds so fluffy and woo-woo, and people are going to roll their eyes and maybe check out at this point, but I can't tell you how many things, both in my experiences as a mother, but also especially so because they're highlighted in this quarantine in the last couple of weeks, how many simple things in life that are truly gifts that we are missing. Like we are straight up missing because we are so focused on the next big thing that we're missing like the next best thing or the very thing beside us that's great. And like truly the birds, I had this goal this year. So I have 4 goals because I keep talking about goals. One of them is to make our family be nature lovers. So we live in Michigan where you live, it's cold like 18 months of the year, and I have very seasonal mental health issues, and by April I'm like grumpy at the world because it's still snowing, hence why we go to Seaside every April. And I finally had this epiphany last year where I was like, listen, we got to rewrite this script of how we're reacting to the weather. It's always going to snow. Like in Michigan, like I'm not going to just hope and pray and wish and change like anything about the weather. It's going to be the same as long as I live in Michigan the rest of my life. So what if I change how I feel about the weather and not only in turn make myself more positive, but also teach these 2 little people who are learning from me to also love the weather regardless of what we get each day. So I've been, reading a lot about how to raise kids that love nature, and we've been doing all these things. But one of the things we've been doing is my son and I, so the 4-year-old, not the 1.5-year-old, we bundle up. I put his backpack on my back with a blanket in it and a snack and a drink. And we literally put our boots on and our gloves and our hat, and we walk. I don't want to say hike, but we walk behind our house about a mile down the road, half mile, and there's a 200-acre wooded development behind a school. And they're currently doing a 10-year 4-phase development program. or project back there to make it into residential areas. Whole other story, but we've been walking back to the forest, we call it. And we go almost every day, especially now with, a different schedule and no childcare. And we've been building a fort. And we have this really awesome fort that we've been building. And every day he asks, can we go to the fort today? And his demeanor when we're together outside of our house in nature is so night and different than when we're at home. And I'm starting to realize how different I feel when I'm outside, when I'm not on my phone or computer, trying to multitask, trying to do a million things, just the senses that I'm more in tune to, and just the things that we see and the way I smell the air. And again, this sounds really fluffy, but like I was missing those things before. And like he's 4 and we were getting in the car the other day and he's like, Mommy, listen. And we all stopped and he goes, I hear a woodpecker. Because I taught him about woodpeckers in the forest. And I'm like, he would have never known what a woodpecker is unless I had taken that time to like point that out to him in the forest. And now, like we were in the forest today and he goes, I stopped. I said, Lachlan, do you hear that? Because I heard a woodpecker. And the woodpecker didn't make noise again, but another bird did. And he goes, Mommy, are the birds laughing at us? And I'm like, who says that, right? Like I have to like cultivate. Oh, my watch thinks I'm talking to her. All that to say, I think we miss these things when we don't carve out space to find them. Yeah. And I think Darcy not working 5 to 9, maybe you won't discover woodpeckers, but maybe there's something else really beautiful that will lead to the next thing that you might have missed.
I just bought a hummingbird feeder, and that's all I want is to bring a lot of hummingbirds to my yard.
Amazing.
And watch hummingbirds.
They will come. Yes. Yeah. I would like to plant a butterfly garden. I heard that they're really magical and spectacular, and they eat off milkweed. So if you plant milkweed, they like the caterpillars basically like stuff themselves silly and then become the cocoon. We have a butterfly garden, like conservatory, huge conservatory by our house, and it's butterfly month. Unfortunately, it's closed right now, but I was asking the lady, how can I like get this at home and like have all my own butterflies and like show my kids how the caterpillar becomes a cocoon and like goes through the whole process. And she was telling me, and she's like, literally the milkweed on the side of the road is what they eat. And they eat like 10 times their body weight, cocoon themselves, and then become a butterfly and fly away. I'm like, that's fascinating.
That's what I'm doing in quarantine right now.
I think we're all doing that a little bit. And we're all going to come out of this.
Definitely in caterpillar mode, just eating.
Just, yeah.
I'm going to be a butterfly.
We're all going to come out of this and we're going to be so grateful for the time we've had to reflect on the blessings we have. And I understand there's hard parts about this, but like I was telling my neighbor through Voxer, not in person.
Good job.
Like, yeah, right.
I would have judged you for that.
But I was telling her, I'm like, how lucky are we that we can literally go outside in our yard for fresh air without worrying about an airstrike overhead?
Yeah.
And that we can turn on our tap and have a hot water. And, oh, you want a hot shower? Great, go take one. Yep. Oh, you want to go to the grocery store and get Cadbury mini eggs? Maybe not essential, but you could do it if you wanted. Like, we have so many things at our fingertips to make our lives really lovely and cushy. And when we act from a place of discontentment, we lack and lacking gratitude, it's a very slippery slope. So a little bit of a tangent there, but
I like it. I think it was a perfect way to kind of bring back that we just want to end with like, it's you having intuition about your own life. It's you taking, and intuition comes through the silence. It comes through butterfly walks. It comes through going outside. I go outside and face my pineal gland, my third eye towards the sun every day for like 20 minutes.
That's amazing.
It gives me all the vitamin D I need. It's my one thing that I can do. It's like great. Those little things, those little rituals that keep us grounded, keep us human. Our phones don't make us human. You know, it's our connection to nature, connection to planet Earth, which if this isn't teaching us how to reconnect to planet Earth, I don't know what is, Mother Earth. So it's all to say that, yes, we are our jobs in a lot of ways, but we get to define who we want to be, what jobs we want to have, how we want to show up through blogging, through Instagram, through whatever we want to do. And you're a really great example of pivoting, of putting other things first. And I think knowing how we each define success for ourselves is the absolute key to us being happy, being healthier, and for us discovering new things. Who knows, with you doing this with your children, taking this time, that you don't go on to discover something even more glorious that you get to do in this life, which I have a feeling it's going to come. You're going to teach us all how to grow butterfly gardens online.
Oh my gosh.
You're going to be a YouTube
I don't know
expert.
about butterfly gardens, but who knows? Yeah, right? Maybe I'll be like Bill
world
Nye
is your
or
oyster.
something, right? And I think it's just, again, I don't want to ever come from a place of me trying to ram my best way down people's throats as the right way, because I'm very cognizant of there not being right or wrong ways, but best ways instead. I think we need, and I'm going to speak for women because I'm a woman myself, but like we need women in the courtroom who are working 8 hours or 80 hours a week and fighting cases and bringing justice to situations. Like, we need those women, and we need women who don't have kids, not because they're sacrificing something, but because like that's truly not the calling for them, and they're leaning to other things that are best for them. And this is like my decision to scale back on work and, you know, make a 5-figure salary and work from home 3 days a week and have my kids with, like, all the decisions I made are not what I want to promote to anybody else, because if people are listening and thinking, well, I could never do that, I have X to worry about, or I want Y, that's like totally not the point. The point is, whatever your thing is, like, to lean into that and be unapologetic about it and give your permission to let the rest just go. And I just want to point that out, because we need, like, the pendulum has to swing both ways, and we have to balance it out by having people pursuing all these different things to make, you know, society kind of work in harmony as best we can. So whatever that looks like for you and for the next person, just, again, blinders on and leaning into that thing that's unique to you without worrying about what the next person beside you is doing for themselves.
That was so beautifully stated and so inclusive of each of us, because we all have different journeys. We all have different things where, you know, some of us are married, some of us aren't, some of us have kids, some of us don't, some of us want millions, some of us want the 5 figures and the nature walks, you know, like, we really decide what that is. And the world needs whatever is your truth, whatever you want to do, however big you want to scale, however much you want to, you know, work or not work. That's exactly what the world is looking for in its balance. And it's all about not comparing it to anybody else. I love how you said to be unapologetic about it. I think that's the perfect ending to this podcast. Thank you so much for such an honest, beautiful, wise conversation. I love it. And it's been a long time since I've heard a woodpecker, and I'm going to go into nature and hear one. Gosh darn it.
You're going to notice it now.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. That was really fun, Darcy. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Play It Brave podcast. Love what you heard? Wonderful. You can shout about it in the reviews. I bet you know someone who needs a shot of self-belief. Then don't keep us a secret. If you've missed something crucial, we've got show notes for this and all past episodes over at darcybenincosa.com/Play It Brave. Thanks for tuning in, but don't forget, the world teaches you to play it safe. Stand up, stand out, and start playing it brave.